Hey, Fly Girl. I'm René Vengelsdorf, Aviation CEO, FAA board alum, and high performance coach. Whether you're chasing your first discovery flight or leading at 40,000 feet, this show is your runway for bold career moves, real mentorship, and stories from women rewriting their flight plan. From the cockpit to the control tower, we're building the future of aviation one fly girl at a time. Welcome to the Fly Girls Guide podcast. Hey, welcome to this episode of the Fly Girls Guide to Aviation Careers. I am so excited today to talk to Nicki Harricharan, who has had a crazy cool career in air traffic control. Nicki, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Renee. I really appreciate you having me on board. I'm excited.
Well, tell me a little bit about your path, because I know you have a really interesting leadership role now, and I want to hear more about what you do day to day now. But tell us what you did to get to this point, kind of what that looked like, because I think that's fascinating.
Sure thing. Well, I'll start all the way back to when I first boarded a plane. I was actually less than a year old before I turned one, and throughout my formative years is when I traveled a lot with my parents back and forth from Trinidad, where I was born, to the U.S. And I was always fascinated. I was always fascinated by one morning you are, in one place, and then by the afternoon you are in a different country with different people, different cultures, and that sense of wonder, connecting people and places has always been fascinated to me. So when I went to college, I studied airport management at a small private college across from LaGuardia Airport in New York. Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology. Became very much interested in air traffic control because I spoke to a couple of air traffic controllers while I was there. Did airport management. After I finished, I actually took the test for air traffic, and I was placed at Washington Center in the United States with the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. And from there, my career kind of just took off, right? Controller there. I moved back to New York to be with family for a stint, was a supervisor at New York Center. And then prior to taking this CANSO leadership job, I was at the FAA Command Center in Warrenton, Virginia. Various roles there. Most recent was the integration of rocket launches into the National Airspace System, which is always fun and new, and lots going on there. And from there, I applied for the CANSO Operations Program Manager, and here I am.
So what does that mean? What does the CANSO Program Operations Manager do?
So a plethora of things, I'll say. So think of a global standpoint from anything related to operations within air traffic management. So we are a company that represents, or I should say an organization that represents air navigation service providers, for example, like the FAA and or various ones like LVNL and in Europe, and various, even in the Africa region, the Latin America, Caribbean region. Again, global.
It sounds like you're helping air traffic systems or national airspace systems around the world be as sophisticated and forward-thinking as that of the United States, which always blows me away. When I got my pilot's license a few years ago, I was like, wait, they thought of that? Oh, wait, they thought of that? Oh, wow, that makes so much sense. Like it's very complex, made simple and thoughtful, and the safety of the airspace system in the United States just always blows me away. The way that things work together is incredible. So it sounds like what you do is you are able to replicate and promote best practices from the best airspace systems into some that may not have the sophistication or the experience that we have here in the United States.
Essentially, so to echo that, I'll say is yes, more mature ANSPs, such as the FAA, such as NAV Canada, and others in Europe. They are future forward thinking. They're advanced technology, and you think of other regions within the world where traffic demand is not there as of yet, right? But it's coming. For example, in the Middle East as well as the Africa region. Everyone is interested in exploring and traveling, and we are going to double and triple in the amount of air travel that we have, not only from a passenger standpoint, but also from, cargo standpoint and economic standpoint. So again, yes, we not only help lesser mature ANSPs with best practices and guidance documents and materials that we have currently published, but we also very future forward thinking, right? Like, what is air traffic management going to look like in 2045 and beyond?
Well, let's talk about that a minute, because from where I sit, I can definitely tell that there are some changes coming, right? There are more rocket ships. For sure. Definitely space travel is looking like a real thing. I mean, we have a space force here in the United States now, and that kind of shows us that there's a trend toward very high altitude operations. But then much closer to the surface, we're looking at an explosion in unpiloted vehicles, in drones, or whatever the proper term is to call them these days. What are you anticipating with that? And how are you coordinating with other air traffic systems around the world to make sure that we're handling the strain on air traffic over time?
It's a different way of thinking, right? So, I mean, you named it. It's everything from advanced air mobility, right? So everything from drones to air taxis to space launches to various vehicles that go up to higher airspace operations, right? How do they transition through Class A airspace? How do they stay up there or transition through? There's so many questions and things that go into the integration of new airspace, or new, I should say, new systems, right? So you're thinking seamless airspace. We're thinking there's questions and conversations with various regions, as well as ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization that we work closely with. And I think the key across all of this is collaboration. You hear that word echoed in aviation a lot because collaboration is key. So it's not only the air navigation service providers, so the ANSPs, whom we actually represent, but it's also the industry members, right, that create these technologies in order to help us, with our radar programs, for example. And it's also the ICAO organizations. It's working hand in hand, and even pilots, right? Hearing their take on it as a user of the airspace.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to me. I was out flying yesterday and was doing flight following, which I'm so thankful for that. But the air traffic controller said, hey, off your 10 o'clock, there's an F-35. And like, I'm watching this F-35 climb and just like so fast and so sleek. And I'm always so thankful to see freedom in the air. It's what it feels like to me. But it just becomes so amplified when there's so many vehicles in the air that have vastly different operational speeds and capabilities and maneuverability and needs for space. And I'm just, as you were talking, I was thinking about that, like, well, what the heck would I do if there was a rocket blasting through my airspace when I'm in my little bitty airplane that can only go 150 knots? So just thinking about the coordination of all of that and the layers of all of that is mind-blowing to me. And I want to ask what you think the skill set is for someone who's doing this kind of planning and this kind of future casting, if you will, in a role like yours.
That's a really
Hey, friends, are you dreaming of a career in aviation or ready to level up the one you've already started? Whether you're a student, a career changer, or a seasoned pro, you are invited to our free virtual aviation career fair happening November 5th. Meet recruiters from top aviation companies, explore career paths you never knew existed, and even sign up for interviews. It's completely free, but space is limited. Register now at weareflygirls.com/careers and take off toward your future in aviation.
good question, Renee. So I'll just say that it takes a problem solver because I look at it as a big puzzle, right? You have a mission to complete, and I'll take, for example, my previous role in space operations and my previous role at the command center in moving traffic around various things such as presidential movement, weather impacts, and just flows of traffic, right? Depending on whatever constraint is going on for that day. So think of you're creating or you have this puzzle and now you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So what skill does that require? It requires detail orientation, right? So you have to be detailed in what you do. It requires an analytical brain because you're looking at traffic flows in order to move them. It requires coordination, relationship building skills, right? A large part of my current work and my previous work is that collaboration. As I've said in the beginning, it's building those relationships because as you build those relationships with your adjacent ANSPs, your client, whether that be the military, whether that be commercial space entities, whether that be pilots, right? It's really all about that collaborative decision making, but in order to get there, you need to build trust and build relationship. So I think the three key leadership skills would be building relationship. It will also be problem solving, and it will also be listening skills, I think. I think, I'm a huge person when it comes to teamwork, and I don't think that everyone should always have the same skills. But in order to lead and complete a mission, you need all hands and all perspective on deck, and then you need the leader to execute and make the decision. So that's how I'd answer that question.
That is a great answer. I love it. What would you say has been the biggest challenge or like the project that was the most challenging to you over your career in air traffic control?
Oh, another good question. I think there are multiple. If I say that,
Tell us. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to just the projects that I've been a part of, and I'm blessed to be a part of them, right? So it goes, I will say, all the way back to maneuvering traffic. At the end of the day, the biggest part of my job was maneuvering traffic, air traffic, around impacts or constraints, right?
Yeah. And often you can't change the weather. So you have to work around that. It's not like you can say, well, we'd like just the snow to fall between this hour and this hour and not have whiteout conditions when the heaviest landing traffic is trying to come into a city. And, there's so many things that you absolutely cannot control and really have to work around those. It's fascinating to me that every day for you was probably very different.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Even when it came to or space launches, they were fun, and the best accomplishment was it's the prep work for the coordination, which took time and again collaboration skills. But when that space launch actually occurred and happened, it was mission accomplished. On to the next. One of my biggest projects and/or challenges within when I was in space ops was just that, working with the military and coming up with a 24-hour turnaround time for a rocket launch. And it was pretty impressive to work with all the entities to launch on a 24-hour coordination time frame.
Wow. And how long before that 24-hour turnaround, how long before that did you start preparing and having conversations and figuring out how to do briefs and all of that stuff?
We were preparing, I think, 6 to 8 months prior, but we had no idea when that initial 24-hour turnaround time would actually be.
Wow. That is high pressure. I can imagine that would be a huge challenge.
But that was
And
definitely fascinating.
like really fun. Like that's epic.
Yeah, yeah. It was a huge mission accomplished type. It reminded me, and I don't know how this relates, maybe in my own brain it relates, but have you seen Top Gun?
Of course.
Of course, right? It's one of my favorite aviation movies, right? All of them. But I originally, when I was younger, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. So it reminds me of a mission accomplished high five. And that is exactly what I did with my colleagues that was on the project with me. And it was great because it goes back to that teamwork and collaboration standpoint.
I wonder, okay, you said you have more than one challenge. What's another challenge that you've faced in your career, especially now at CANSO, going from a national perspective and looking at our national airspace system here in the US to looking more globally at what's going on? What challenge are you facing there?
I think that's a challenge in itself, right? So think of that globally, right? It's not only you're thinking of the US as I was in my career path, it's now more so, okay, well, the way that things are done in the US isn't necessarily the same as it's done in Africa, right? So, or the Middle East. Like, you have to take into consideration culture, you have to take into consideration their legacy systems, you have to take into consideration what technology sets that they have and what's their priority in that region. Their priority may not be the same as the US currently, and it may not be the same as the Latin America, Caribbean region. So I just think that the biggest challenge is sitting, listening, building those relationships to understand their perspective of where they are in aviation and as a community, and being able to help in any possible way.
Yeah, as you were saying, each one of those things culturally and the technology and the regulation and the communication, I'm like having flashbacks to trying to complete aircraft transactions in different regions of the world. And there really is a significant difference. And I don't know if it's the same now or before, but here in the US, I can, as a pilot, go get in my airplane and fly somewhere. I don't have to have any sort of permission. And for example, in China, if I wanted to do that, it would have to be a commercial operation, not a general aviation operation. And I would have to have permission for that takeoff 3 days in advance. And so just even that, in developed countries, the differences are massive. I cannot imagine the complexity of what you're trying to accomplish there. And I applaud you for having those problem solving skills and recognizing all of those difficulties.
They are. And then the other portion of that, it's even how their military handles their country, right? It's very different in each region, in each country, and how that's done and how the collaboration and or the cooperation is there. So it is, to me right now in this position, very interesting and fascinating to just learn from that aspect. And I think that goes hand in hand with my challenge, that I didn't have that aspect before. I had a limited aspect just with our adjacent ANSPs, meaning like we worked with the Latin America, Caribbean, more so the Caribbean area, and Mexico, because they are adjacent to the FAA and the US, I should say, as well as Canada. But again, going back to a global perspective, things are just done differently based on culture and where they are from priority perspective.
Oh, what an interesting perspective. I've never thought about this, and I'm so glad you're sharing this
Yeah, and I
with
think that's
me.
where CANSO kind of comes in, right? From a global perspective in my role right now. It's how can we help from a global perspective based on their regional priorities.
Yeah, and I guess the main thing that you're doing is ensuring air traffic safety around the world, or pursuing that and making air travel safer around the world with this collaborative effort. And I just think that's incredible because you're really changing the future of the way that people travel. And I think that that's an incredible opportunity from where you started as a young child flying and thinking this is so cool to be able to go from one culture to another. And now you're in this position now in your career influencing the transition from one culture to another and making that safe for the 1 year olds of today who are going to be pioneering God only knows what 40 or 50 years from now. How cool to have that full circle moment for you.
Isn't that fascinating? I actually never thought of that. So thank you for the full circle.
I love it. If you're thinking about the next generation of aviation professionals, what would you advise them to be thinking about, to be working on, to investigate now? If you're thinking about the person who's going to be in your position in the future, what would your advice be?
Stay curious and dive deep. I think I've always been a curious being, and those that I do mentor or just have some sort of small tidbit influence on, go for it. Go out of your comfort zone, right? Just learn and be adaptable, and embrace it, right? We don't know everything, but always be a learner. I think that is the biggest thing. Always be a learner and be confident in who you are, right? And be willing to ask the question. Be willing to just go in and learn, ask the question, and grow.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm seeing that's so different in this next generation of employees is, when we were in school, you and I were more expected to learn answers. And I think that what aviation needs, and I'm hearing this across all of the podcasts that I'm doing, are people who want to learn more, who want to know more, who can appreciate what other people have to offer and embrace this collaboration. And I think that that is really the key to success in aviation. It's what I see in successful aviators and professionals now. And I think it's just growing and growing in demand.
Absolutely, because they're the ones that are actually going to be working as controllers, right? And our systems may look different, right? Whether it be with the help of AI, which is a big thing now, or various different personalities. It is just a different world that we will be in, and I think embracing learning and just diving deep and asking the questions when it relates to anything from that matter from a futuristic standpoint is key.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that whether you're a pilot or not, you have an adventure in an aviation career. I think that, there's a thought that aviation careers are not that adventurous unless you're in an airplane or a rocket ship. And I'm finding that's not the case at all. There's so much to be learned and so much to be explored and so many places that you can go within aviation. I think a sense of adventure is pretty important here.
Oh, absolutely.
So, what's the next adventure for you that you're embracing? You love to travel. What does that look like for you? What's an adventure you're looking forward to?
Oh, so I am actually heading to Kenya tomorrow for our CANSO Africa conference. So I have been there before, but I am definitely looking forward to visiting again. I do find joy in learning about various cultures and various places, different countries, right? I think that's where my love for aviation grew or continues to grow, right? So I think that is what I'm looking forward to, just all the next adventures that I have coming up from a travel perspective. Yeah.
What's one mantra or quote that you live by?
Oh, that's a good question. Be present.
That's a
Simple,
really
sweet.
good answer.
Be present. Be present and breathe through every situation.
Yeah. Enjoy the moment you're in, live in the moment you're in,
Yeah.
experience what you're in right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it so much. Nicki, thanks so much for being part of the podcast. I've learned so much from you today and just developed an even deeper respect for what's going on from the controller's perspective that keeps me safe in the air.
Awesome. It was great. Thank you so much, Renee.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. For additional resources, head over to flygirlsguide.com. If you're inspired to pursue a path in aviation or want to support the women who do, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if today's conversation sparked something for you, share it with a friend. It's one of the best ways to grow the Fly Girls Guide community. Until next time.